Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth interview of Motivation Week here at OC University. Those of you who are new, OC University is basically this improvement-focused OC hub where one of our main goals is to sort of bridge that gap between top players and the general community. So in keeping with that theme, something we do here are these series of interviews where we dedicate 1 week to a specific topic. We have a bunch of interviews lined up to discuss that topic, and this week we are doing interviews on motivation. Joining me today for the fifth and final interview of the week is none other than Mr. Doomsday. Hello, hello.
Hey, what's up, man? What's up? Glad to be
Hello.
here.
Yes, very happy to have you here as well. Very excited when I reached out to you and you were like, sure, let's go. I'm like, let's go. So,
Let's go.
so yes, to those who aren't super familiar with your name or they maybe only recognize you a little bit, could you just give a brief introduction as to, who you are in the community and what people probably would recognize you as?
Well, I'm Doomsday. I've been playing this game since summer of 2008, so I've been around pretty much the entirety, with the exception of like the very start. I've been active throughout that time, pretty much. I haven't taken a major break since then, with the exception of maybe a month here or there. I've done a lot of stuff in map modding as well, particularly in the early days. I was a BAT. I was a BAT from about 2010 to 2012 or so. Maps quite a lot as well. I have a few ranked maps. I've also been active a lot as a tournament commentator, and I tend to commentate a lot of community tournaments. I've been casting for the OS World Cup since 2016. 2015 I think was the first year I did. 2015, 2016. And more or less just been doing that all the way until now. And I have been playing since 2008, so that gives it, 13, 14 years at this point? It's been 13, right?
Yeah,
As of last summer.
you have been around, I'm pretty sure, basically done everything. And yeah, I want to, of course, sort of start back from the beginning. I think like finding this game back in 2008 is already sort of an accomplishment in and of itself, I feel like, with, how little the game sort of gets advertised. So could you sort of talk about how exactly you found the game in the first place and what compelled you to want to try it and keep playing it?
Well, I first discovered the game through, I guess it's kind of a weird source, but in 2008 there was a website that was quite active for like video game news and such, called GameTrailers.com, which had a few cool things, good things on there. They had a little video sharing part of it. It wasn't terribly active, but there was a video on there of the old Super Mario Brothers map, right, with a little storyboard from that
Oh, right.
era.
Is it the Peppy video?
I don't know. It was uploaded to Game Trailers as opposed to YouTube. I know that was on YouTube, right?
Oh, I see.
It might be a re-upload though, as far as I know.
I see.
But that I found that video on there, looked quite cool, so I thought, hey, I'll give this game a go. Seems like it's a free game. Looks pretty cool.
That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I know. I know Miss Maggie has mentioned that he was into EBA first when he was on here earlier in the week, but I
Right.
never actually knew about EBA before I found OSU. Like OSU was the first experience of like this sort of game. I played EBA after the fact.
Right, and I guess just for context, EBA is Elite Beat Agents, right? It's the
Yeah, yeah.
the DS game version, right?
Yeah, the original, what the gameplay of OSU was based off beforehand, it was from EBA and like O and R and things like that.
Right, right.
Which at the time, that was 99% of the people that played in 2008 came from that game.
Yeah, and I think it's actually very interesting. I did not know until these interviews that you and Miss Magius basically found the game from the same video, as he also said that he found it through that Super Mario storyboard video. So,
Neither did I, actually.
oh, really?
I did not realize he had basically the same source, because me and him, we signed up pretty much on the same day,
Right.
which
I'll,
also blew my mind when I found that out. That's kind of crazy.
that is, small world, this whole internet thing.
Yeah, it's very small. You wouldn't think so, would you?
No, you wouldn't. So, finding the game in 2008. So, what other games, I guess, were you playing at the time, and what about Osu made you want to stick with it more than those other games?
Well, just before I started getting into Osu, I was into S4 League, which was a third-person shootery thing at the time, which sadly is not alive now, but there's still private servers for that. I was playing S4 League for a few months before I found Osu, and once I found Osu, I pretty much played those two games concurrently for about a month, and then I dropped S4 League and just continued to play Osu from then on, pretty much. I think I was also playing some Trackmania at the time, but I may be getting a few years mixed up. But I'm pretty sure Trackmania was another game I was into around about the same time. I'd say those were the main ones.
Oh, I see. So I'm curious actually, do you have any like initial memories of like moments where you were like, yeah, this Osu game seems pretty fun to get into, keep playing? Like, was it the community or just the songs or the gameplay or I don't know, what do you think?
Oh, what at the time when I first joined?
Right, right.
Well, at the time when I first joined, it was pretty much just, oh, this game's fun. There's lots of cool songs on here, and there was lots of Toho music. I just got into Toho at the time as well, so I was kind of fanboying that series for a bit. So I had lots of stuff to enjoy, but it was pretty much for the first few months all about just enjoying the game. I didn't really get into the community until about 3 to 6 months after that. Once I got into mapping and things, mainly that was, and multiplayer as well, which was very active in 2008, 2009. Pretty much everyone played multi.
Right.
Yeah, first few months I was just pretty much just playing solo though, with the occasional multi game.
Right. Okay, I see. So what exactly compelled you like let me think. Did you mostly play for just sort of improving your own scores, or was it the online leaderboard aspect that sort of compelled you to keep improving your own scores as well, or what do you think?
Well, at the time, pretty much all my play was focused on climbing the rank because obviously it was score farming back then, right? Score ranking.
Oh,
And
okay.
I pretty much after the first initial months of just feeling out the game and just having fun with it. Once I actually got serious with trying to compete, it was pretty much about just climbing that score ranking. So I downloaded every map I could and just played through every single map, literally from the top of my song select to the bottom, alphabetically. That's what I did.
Oh, wow.
And I just did all that and yeah, just slowly climbed the ranks over the few months there.
So, was it difficult at that time to like play through every single map?
It was because, given the rank maps at the time, there were pretty much the ceiling of skill for the players. It was obviously challenging on the higher diffs. You did have to push yourself a lot.
All
And at
right.
the time, I was particularly bad at holding AC. I would just do everything I could to hold combo. But even like the harder maps, then I'd generally go through my whole song select, and if there were maps that I struggled on, I'd come back to those and then give them a good practice, right? I just pick at them one by one until I full comboed.
Right,
That's
right.
generally how I went about those.
I see. So then from there, okay, so my concept so far is you played for a few months just to get a feel for the game, and then you kept playing in solo, but this time so more focused on climbing the ranks. And then from there, you sort of transitioned into playing multiplayer with others.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Okay,
pretty much that. Yeah, that progression was pretty much bang on.
so from there, what was, I guess, your initial inspiration to start mapping your own songs?
Well, it was simply because I saw a lot of other people's maps and I was thinking, hey, I can do something like this as well. So I gave it a very casual try at first. I'd found a song from Stepmania that I wanted to see maps, and I gave that a go. But I had no actual experience mapping things at the time. I was just going off of what I'd played, and it was, as you'd expect, particularly bad. But that was pretty much the first foray I had into properly interacting with a lot of the people in the community, and with a lot of the in-game chats at the time pretty much been made up of the active members pretty much entirely.
All right.
That's how I grew to improve my mapping and figure out what was bad, what wasn't bad, and that generally enticed me to just keep mapping more, just to see, my improvement from map on map that I made through other people helping me as well.
So, were there any sort of OG mappers or people back then that really inspired you to, keep trying to improve your own maps, or anyone who like really was, I guess, friendly or gave you a lot of feedback in that regard and just made you want to keep mapping?
Oh God, it was a wide spread of people. A lot of the active players and mappers at the time all generally chipped in whenever they were. I guess a few people to particularly mention would be people like Lato helped me out a lot in my early days of mapping, because he started mapping just after I did, but he was far more active than me and was generally more experienced before I was. Zetrot as well was really active at the time as a mapper and generally in community things. Just a couple names, but there was a lot of people that were helping me out, because generally everyone knew everyone, and it was a fairly small community. Even just the entirety of the in-game chats were pretty small,
Right.
so it's hard to mention just particular people. But I remember those two were very active in like my first ranked maps that I did.
Okay, I see. So I do want to ask. So I do recall that you had reached rank 1, and I think you were fighting for it with Wolf for a little bit. Way back when. I was that in the score ranking? I can't actually remember what year that was.
It was, yeah,
Okay.
that was a score ranking when I was fighting with Wolf in top ranks, because the only time I was really engaging for number one was during the score era. But yeah, there were a few people that were really active in going for top one back then, and I find it kind of interesting actually. When the score ranking was the premier like ranking of the game, because so many more people pushed for it, and there were so few maps compared to say now. Generally, the top 10 had played every single map in the game. So the top 10, they'd played everything at that point, and once you hit top 10, the level of skill between the top 10, or at least the level of like, I guess some people drop off and stop playing everything, but generally top 10 was determined by who had the better scores on the hardest maps, right?
Right.
That was always the big competition, because it was less about just playing everything and having one person that's played every map. Generally, you'd have to grind to improve little score gains on the harder maps to determine, say, the top 5, which
Oh,
was quite
that's
interesting, because
interesting.
that's very different to now, obviously.
Yeah,
Like,
for
no one
sure.
plays everything anymore, apart from some of the crazy score farmers, which I have so much respect for, by the way.
Yeah, same, same. So, do you have any, I guess, since we're on the topic, like specific memories of like map rivalries or like leaderboard rivalries that you remember being, I guess, either very engaging or just very memorable?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
Like certain, like, because people would fight for scores on like specific maps. So, especially at that time where you were sort of fighting for rank 1, were there any like specific map sort of rivalries that you recall being either memorable or engaging or something like that?
Oh, right, or particular map rivalries. Oh, geez.
Yes.
Oh, there's definitely a few of those. One was definitely Banned Forever, the old No God map. That was essentially one of the death maps of like the era when it was ranked, and that was popular for a lot of top players trying to go for the first FC. Uh, Strange Program as well was like that, although generally when that was ranked in the very early days, it was too hard for anyone to really full combo, even compared to something like Banned Forever. A few others. Oh God. Oh, there's quite a few, but those are two particular ones I remember.
Right.
Karnbu as well, and Marisa, the old DJ pop maps
Oh yeah,
for like
yeah.
for Marisa's old specialist thing, and Overdrive, Karnbu. Those are
Right.
really popular as well, particularly Karnbu, because that hadn't had an FC for a long time as well.
I see, I see. So, I guess leading into then the era of Tom points or, PPV1 basically,
Hmm.
how did your motivation change from just sort of going for specific leaderboard maps to than whatever the new meta was, or did you mostly just stick with your older habits or method of playing the game that was score farming?
Well, by the time that the PP system came in, like specifically PPV1, by the time that came in, I was already pretty bored of score ranking. I'd already spent like a couple of years generally fighting for that, and I'd already stopped playing everything at that point. I was dropping down the rank. So a new system coming in was perfectly timed for me personally to get back into competitive play. And at first, PPV1 was very refreshing, right? It was this, complicated metric that actually rates difficulty of maps. At the time, it was great, but, you know, on hindsight, it was not great at all. You didn't know how it exactly worked. You didn't know how the difficulty algorithm worked because it was all kept private at the time. You didn't know how scores are related to each other, and it was fundamentally broken because I was sitting there like top 100 with my top play being a 3 mod normal. Like, I don't even know how this works. And you just basically spammed hard diffs, hidden DT, trying to SS and outspin everyone because higher up the ranking you were on a map determined how much PP you got.
Right.
It
So
wasn't great, but that's getting besides the point, I think.
yeah. I think in PPV1, your like PP value was relative to like everyone else's score on that same map. So
It was.
yeah. So if you were number one on that map, then you would have like the most points on that map compared to anyone else, basically. So
Yeah, exactly. And then if someone sniped you, you lost PP. So it's like, what? You'd lose PP if a bunch of people sniped your score. It was brutal.
right.
Kind of cool in theory, but flawed when you realize the actual algorithm didn't work past maybe the first year to 6 months. It's like,
Yeah, I do know like many years afterwards when in discussions on how to improve PPV2, some people would be like, "Oh, you should make it relative to like this other scores on the map." And then everyone's like, we tried that. That was PPV1. Didn't end very well." And yeah, just you know, how things go.
yeah,
But
exactly. It I mean, it has merit, that idea, for sure, but
right.
it needs to be very carefully handled, and it's you gotta. It's yeah, there's a lot to it, but in PPV1 it didn't work so well.
Right. So, I guess moving forward, I guess sort of in a general sense, do you have like specific motivations as for, or yes, specific things that I think motivated you the most to keep sticking with the game and the community, even when you weren't super competitive in the main ranking system anymore?
Yeah, I mean, once a few years had passed with like PPV1 and then PPV2 came in, because at the start of PPV2 I actually did pretty well, especially on the old TP system. But obviously, as PPV2's gone on and the aim meta has come in, me not being a particularly great aim player and whatnot, I guess I fell off a bit. But at that point, I'd already pretty much focused on, improving against my own scores and performances that come out, and I generally just go against that rather than looking at the net, I guess. And that's something I still do now. But certainly, after a couple of years, 2 to 3 years of PPV2 coming out and not really pushing so hard on gaining rank in PPV2, I definitely shifted far more into focusing on improving my own personal bests on maps, right? This tends to be what I do a lot when I'm browsing in my sessions these days.
Right.
But certainly at the height of PPV1, and I guess in the first couple of years of PPV2, I did push a lot for rank at the time. That's what I enjoyed. I've never really been the sort of player that gets massively frustrated at dropping big PP players, right? And choking one or this, that, and the other. I guess it's just my own disposition to not let it bother me so much. I always enjoyed going for ranks like that in the early days when it was a fresh system and it worked super well with the maps at the time. It was more down to just disinterest in the maps that were the maps you had to play to gain rank, right? Plus, I stopped playing pure speed maps because I played pretty much every speed map that I wanted to when I was bored of it. So I generally just lost interest in PPV2 due
I
to the
see.
maps that not wanting to play at the time. But after that, I focused more on just improving my own scores compared to my own performance as opposed to the ranking system, I guess.
Right. So with that, I have a question. So you might be a little biased for this question based on, what we already talked about, but do you feel like just competing for your own scores is a more like reliable or um what is it? Like stronger, like more grounded motivation to continue playing the game rather than competing, I guess, against other players or for the online rankings? Like, do you think that just trying to improve your own scores is a like stronger like motivation? Does that make sense? I'm not really sure how to word this question.
No, I understand what you're saying, right? It's like whether playing to improve your own scores is a stronger motivation than just going against everyone else, right?
Right.
And I do agree with that. It's a bit of both for me, but I do definitely believe that focusing on improving your own performances now as opposed to what you could do like a week ago is a far stronger thing that can motivate you simply because it's not going to be affected by external factors like other people just suddenly figuring out something and getting far better or external ranking changes or whatnot. It's all focused on what you could do, and that's everything that you can change, right? That's all under your control.
Right.
And I find that focusing on just improving yourself, not only is that simply better because you see the results of that, right? When you beat one of your old scores, or you're able to stream a little bit faster, or read a slightly higher AR, lower AR. That's more tangible, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, for sure.
if you can let that fuel you for your gaming in Osu, it's the best way to stick at it and not feel disheartened or frustrated because it's right there and it's all under your control, right?
Right, right.
If you
Yep.
get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that I think is a really good way to put it. So also, okay, so I guess that is true. I don't know who can really disagree that competing with your own scores is really healthy for motivation. But I guess with that in mind, what is your take on having like friendly rivalries and things like that on, I guess, and that its influence on motivation?
Well, that's definitely handy to have. I mean, we were talking about how self improvement is a big motivator and a very healthy one. But there's nothing wrong with competing on leaderboards and all that, and that's a lot of fun. That's one of the main reasons why I've kept my interest in being competitive. Just seeing you score compared to everyone else is good, but it's just focus on yourself mostly, right?
Right,
Um, yeah, and I mean having friends or rivals in particular areas that you want to try and compete with is always good because it fuels the competitive nature that allows the people involved to push themselves, right? Like having people around you, whether it's around your rank range or around your ability range, or people that are into the same sorts of like skill sets you are, and trying to just seeing how you compare to them and trying to compete with them is completely healthy. I
right,
totally agree with that. It's quite important, honestly, for certain areas, especially if you want to try and improve at something you don't necessarily feel comfortable in. Like you're trying to practice like a particular gimmick. It helps to go up against someone else or a friend and compete with each other on it, and it
right.
helps push both of you.
Yes, agreed, agreed. I also am interested in asking. So you also mentioned that your aim was never particularly your strong point, but I do know. So I guess context for this question is that I know a lot of people who feel that they have one skill that's like far behind their others, and it can be really demotivating to try training that skill when they're just getting like scores that are a lot worse than they feel like they should be able to. So, do you have any, I guess, your own experiences with, I guess, like reasons why you felt motivated to train some of your weaknesses? Maybe not even aim, right? But just anything. And I guess any bits of advice or motivational words for those who have been struggling with training their weaknesses.
Right. So obviously, if you're really good at one skill set, and then you want to go practice something completely different, then yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm can do really well on hard rock, but if I play low AR hidden, I can't play anything because they sort of look at that through the lens of their highest skill. But the best way I find to look at like improving skill sets that are your weaknesses is to just don't look at the rest of your skill set on that, but just focus on the previous scores that you've put out on maps of that style and focus on trying to improve on them. Focus on trying to snipe them or get a bit higher accuracy or whatever, and just focus on the sorts of maps you're trying to practice, right?
Right.
You don't want to get hooked on the fact that, or you can't, if you struggle on a high AR DT, but you can do aim maps really well. You've really just got to focus on, oh, how do I do on these high AR DT maps? What other high AR DT scores do I have? Let's see if I can try and match those or get close to them or maybe even beat them. You really got to try and hone in on those and just trust the process that as you play more of those, it will gradually increase compared to your old scores, and you'll see a gradual increase, especially if you keep playing those. Just it's handy to keep an eye on your local records with
Right.
these sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually a good point, sort of in the sense of like, don't compare your scores on maps you're bad at to your scores on maps that you're good at. Right. You want to be
Yeah.
comparing apples to apples, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It's easy to lose yourself in that, especially with the online ranking system and the fact that you look at all these people that have these great scores and what you're bad at, but just don't fixate on that and just fixate on your local scores and just focus on those. Is what I'm trying
Right.
to say.
Yeah. I think comparing yourself to others as a sense of inspiration or motivation can be really healthy, but like
Mm.
if it becomes to where you're sort of feeling discouraged or that like, oh, you'll never be as good as X player who's already doing this super well, like blah 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 blah, um I think that can lead to very toxic or I guess unproductive mindset. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A little just addendum on that as well. For me personally, when I'm working on like elements of my game that aren't so strong, something I like to look forward to is when I'm practicing that. I like to look forward to the maps that I'll be able to play once I finally start improving this one thing. Right, it happens a lot with high approach rate DT, which is not really my thing, and when I don't practice it, I get really rusty on it. But I when I'm practicing it and I'm getting better at it, I like to think of the maps I'll be able to finally play properly, right? And
oh yeah,
it
yeah.
opens up more of the game to you. That's one of the things that really motivates me to try and improve at these things, right? It allows me to play more maps and actually enjoy them.
Right. Yeah, I think having certain goal maps in mind, and usually I feel like, especially for newer players, that's usually their initial inspiration for, I guess, training a certain skill as a new player. Is like maybe the best example that comes to mind is Xark, who um is really into a certain type of music that was like very streamy, had a lot of streamy maps, and so
Mm.
that was sort of his inspiration to basically become a stream player when he was very new to the game. So um yeah, with that in mind, yeah, hopefully with that is all clear. So I guess a couple other questions. So someone asked on the Google forum is once you've achieved just about all of your dream goals, such as winning OWC or getting rank 1 or getting like a big milestone, what keeps you motivated to keep going and continue playing the game?
I guess for me, it'd be more relating to when I was rank 1 back in score days, I guess. Because when I was rank 1 back then, at that point, I'd pretty much played every map and I'd not FC'd every map, but I FC'd pretty much every map at that point, bar maybe one or two. But the main thing that kept me going was mainly just the fun and enjoyment of competing with the other people around me. Right? It was just I enjoyed the game first of all. I enjoyed the actual mechanics of the game, but I enjoyed the competition. It was a fun thing, and even though I was already rank 1 at the time, I was rank 1 a few times. It was always enjoyable to just keep that going. The only time I stopped going for those score ranking days was when I lost interest in playing every map. So it was mainly the fun of it that kept me going. back then. I guess
Right.
that's probably the closest I have to that.
Yeah, I think if your motivation for doing something is just sort of through you're like the genuine fun of it, then I think that will keep you going even after you achieve any goals that you set for yourself. But if your primary motivation for like just playing the game is just to reach a certain goal, then obviously once you reach that goal, then you're not going to have that motivation anymore. I think it is perfectly fair to like, you know, some people they hit rank 1 and that was their goal for a long time, and then it becomes like, okay, now can I hold rank 1 for longer than anyone else has, right? And
Mm.
basically just adding on to those goals, like, you know, they may have been dream goals one day, or like long ago, but if like, you know, once you accomplish those goals, then they're not really dream goals anymore, I guess. So you can keep shooting higher and higher, I think, is another important thing to keep in mind. So
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's never like a zenith, especially in a game like Osu, where the skill ceiling is basically endless.
right.
If your goal is to become the best that ever was and catch them all, you can. There's always something else to go for. I mean, I think that's looking at players like say Cookiezi in his prime. Even though he was number one at that time, right, and he was pretty much the undisputed best player for a long time, he still kept pushing his own scores. Always kept trying to add more mods onto crazy maps, or he always kept pushing himself. There isn't such thing as a no goals remaining to achieve in this game unless you set yourself something and then you get it and then you're like, okay, what now? There's always something if you
Right.
enjoy the game. So enjoying the game is very important to keep that going.
Yes, much agreed. So these days, so I also want to ask about, I guess, inspiration to, how do I put this? Like things that have kept you motivated even when you weren't super interested in the game, or like, I don't know. Can you like sort of walk us through some times where like you weren't super interested in playing the game, and then also what exactly brought you back to just wanting to play the game again?
Well, for the most part, I've never really had a time where I've not wanted to play for a while. I've had small breaks for like say a month or so here and there, mostly due to like IRL things, but for the most part, I've never really lost a massive amount of interest. I've had times where I've been less motivated to really try though. I've had like especially at times where I have like a really nasty say muscle memory issue where I slump in my play for a few months. That I usually have to try and put myself up a little bit from then. Like for example, sometime last year, I had a time where I struggled on pretty much anything that involved streams or even just like 5 note bursts. I had a really horrible like muscle memory issue with my tapping, which put me off for quite a while. But I still enjoyed the game mainly because I focused on just enjoying the base mechanics and focusing on you know playing new maps and improving other skill sets that didn't involve bursts like that. So I generally just focused on other things that could get around this issue I was having with my streams. Right, that was the main thing. But at the time, I saw a lot of info from friends and other people, mostly like in the UK community. I know Bubbleman sent me a few things to try and get around my streaming issue, and I spent a bunch of time practicing that. Maybe about like an hour or so each session, just to try and push that a little bit. But in order to keep myself going during those, I focused on other elements that I enjoyed about the game that didn't involve those streams, and eventually I figured it out.
Oh, do you have any secrets to share those to those who maybe are struggling with the same thing?
Oh, well, what I'd say is really is if something goes horrible with your muscle memory one time, you find your hop on one time and you can't tap the same way or aim the same way because you've got some bad habit that you can't get rid of. It helps to just gradually chip at it by just practicing it and just play stuff for that style casually, uh, and just chip away at it. I mean, for in my example with streams, I had a big stream collection, and I just played a bunch of maps from that at certain BPMs each session, and you slowly figure it out. I don't have any secret sauce though. I'm afraid it's just if that comes up, just be patient. Just play whatever you're struggling a little bit each session, and eventually you'll figure it out. Just got to keep pushing at it, really.
Right. And I think continuing to go back to maps or, just general things that are actually enjoyable for you, because it can be really frustrating, right? To try to maintain skill with like stuff that you're not super familiar with or super comfortable with, then
Mm.
yeah, it can really help to make sure you're fitting in some really fun stuff also, because then it can get really frustrating to keep going. So you need
Yeah,
some fun in the things that you do. So
absolutely. If you don't have that, it's not nearly as engaging. So you
right,
always want to make sure that you're enjoying the journey, because that's the main thing, really.
yes. So I also want to ask if you have any experience, I guess, with like really long-term goals and I guess how you're able to stay motivated when working towards them. I think the biggest example usually that people give is um, score ranking, obviously for one, but even like let's say, so someone asked about like clearing off like a bunch of A ranks on their profile, or obviously maybe just like reaching a certain rank that's much higher than where they currently are. Like those sorts of really long term goals that can sometimes feel out of reach. Like, do you have any experience with that or advice for sticking with those goals?
Yeah, I've generally, when it came to like longer term goals for me, particularly, especially like more recently, it's been more focused on trying to get scores on particular maps that I really like, and also just trying to i- improve my skill sets at my weakest skill sets to a point where I can play a particular map I like. Right, it's always focus on a map I want to play but I can't, or a map I want to FC but I can't yet. And generally, when I go about that, it's best to not look at, okay, I want to FC this one map, but I can't do the streams in it because they're super fast, or the this, that, and the other that you can't do. It's best to focus on the things you need to do to get to that goal, and then fixating on those, right? Just breaking it down into smaller things you can work on. So, say for example, you have a map and some of the streams in it are too fast at one point, maybe. So it helps to, spend some of your time focusing on just playing a bunch of stream maps and trying to sort that out. But, just focus on trying to improve that element first. Or if maybe that map as well also has some hard squares in it or something, or some linear patterns you can't do, right? You could look at trying to get better at those patterns in particular, but just play other maps that have those in, right? It's best to take your larger goal and look at the smaller elements needed to get to that and working on those instead, because they're far more digestible.
Right.
That's really the way.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, making side quests out of your main quest until you tackle it a little at a time. It's a lot simpler to digest. Much agreed. So, do you have any experience with either hand pain or something like that, where maybe you were like over motivated and then, or like something happened, right, and then you sort of had to take a break for some time? Is that something that ever happened to you, and how did that affect your motivation?
I've been pretty lucky, I guess, that I have not really had any major injury issues over my OSU career, I guess. Um, Obviously, since like 2015, I've been streaming a lot, and I generally do play a lot of OSU. Uh, but when I have times where I've overplayed, which just definitely does happen, especially if I play like multiple days in a row, like on like a tournament weekend or something, it's easy for me to overplay and end up like having really sore hands and fatigued hands. Generally, if that comes up, then I just take a break for a couple days or 2 3 days and come back. It's generally a case of, if your hands are very tired, instead of thinking, "Oh God, I really want to FC this one map, but I have to wait," you just have to wait. You're just gonna have to suck it up. And to be honest with you, the hardest thing, I guess, if you're really really eager to keep going, but you've overplayed and you've hurt your hands or something, it helps to wait, because when you start playing again, you'll be super motivated for it, and you'll generally try even harder. I can't really relate to having any major injury issues that have put you out for, weeks at a time. I can't relate to anything like that though. But what I would say is, if people are having those issues, just listen to your body, and if your hands are starting to hurt, just take a break. I've been going, I've been living by that since I started playing, and I've had no issues. You just have to listen to your body.
Right,
But I
right.
know some people may not be as lucky, depending on, you know, people are different. But for me, if your hands start hurting, just take a break, and you'll be fine.
Right, yeah, and I think if you take a break while you're already motivated, then that motivation will just, keep getting stronger, I feel like. So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, if you don't overplay, when you do get a chance to play, or a chance to have a good session, you'll be really eager to it, and you'll be into it mentally, because that's important, because Osu is a very mental game. So it
right.
helps to do that, and when you do play, you'll your motivation will be even stronger.
So, I also want to ask about, like, when you are grinding your weaknesses or just trying to get better in general, is it really necessary to play every single day? Like, let's say I'm super motivated, like, should that come in the form of playing every single day with, like, no breaks? If I take a break, I'm going to get rusty and I'm not going to improve as fast. Or, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I personally, I don't play a lot of, like, lots of days in a row of Osu, simply because of the aforementioned. If I play a lot of days in a row, my hands get fatigued and I just can't tap as well. So I usually just always take breaks like that. I know a lot of players uh, like to say, before a big match or something, like in a tournament, they'll play a bit every single day to avoid that rust that you mentioned, right? And
Right.
that's definitely true. But you don't need to play every single day, in my opinion, to avoid getting rusty. But it does help to at least play a bit, like once every few days or something, just to keep that going, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I think in my experience, even just playing like every other day is usually okay. Especially, and it depends how long your sessions are as well. But I mean, you can sometimes even play for like 20, 30 minutes on one day just to like on a break day or rest day. And it doesn't need to be anything intensive, just, something. It's just better. But
Yeah,
yeah,
just a few maps, just to like make sure that your mentality and reading a map is there, and that's all you really need. You don't have to grind 8 hours a day every day to get good at jumps. It just helps to every now and again, just to reinforce, you know, whatever mentality you have while playing. Reinforce that reading. So you
right,
don't need
right.
to grind every single day,
Yeah,
in my
agreed.
opinion.
So I'm going to ask this in a very general way and just sort of see how you interpret it. But how has the community affected your motivation in this game?
Oh god, massively, incredibly. I'm pretty sure I would not be playing this long if it wasn't for my community interaction, I guess, and how so many people have treated me so well over the years. It's been very humbling. But yeah, I've absolutely, the community is the reason why I'm still playing, and it's the reason why I got into mapping so much in the early days. Although I don't do much anymore, I still do a little bit. And absolutely for playing, it did, because the numerous community things around have kept me in the game. Obviously, a lot of my OSU play is down to just me playing the game and enjoying it and focusing on improving my own scores. But no doubt, playing for ranks, playing for scoreboards online and stuff, playing in tournaments particularly, has all kept me motivated to play, because it helps to have multiple objectives, right? You can improve your own play in solo. You can try and do well in a tournament as another one, right? Or you can try and, for mapping, enter a mapping contest, things like that. It's different elements keep you involved, and they all reinforce one another. If you get what I'm saying, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. I think everything's sort of connected in this lovely little Osu-verse that
Oh,
we're just living in.
oh yeah, the Osu world we live in. So absolutely, absolutely, the community interaction is a huge point for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of other people as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who pretty much only play solo and don't really interact much. I mean, you see some of the super highly ranked players maybe that don't interact with the community much at all, but have done very
Right.
well in solo, right? So people are motivated by their own elements. But I do personally believe that being involved with multiple things in this game helps reinforce your drive to improve in the game or improve at other elements of this game, right?
Right. And on that note, so okay, so actually I want to ask what made you start streaming on Twitch initially? And then also, how has that sort of evolved both motivation wise and, sort of also in a general sense?
For streaming, well, I guess I started streaming in like 2013, pretty much just trying it out. Uh, I generally just enjoyed streaming on there because it allowed me to talk to a lot of the people in my hash spectator because I far enjoy or far sorry, hang on, I'm getting that wrong, but I enjoy more talking to people in my voice than I do in text, and hash spectator is kind of limited for me in that opinion. So I like streaming because I can actually talk to people over a mic while I'm playing, right?
Right.
And yeah, obviously since then I've become far more serious with my streaming, and I've been full time since 2015. So
Oh,
it's
yes, yes.
so that is definitely one of the biggest reasons why I do spend so much time in OSU. But it's mostly allows it. Even if I wasn't streaming full time, I'd still spend a lot of time with OSU, and I'd still have the drive to improve myself and do other things. But yeah, absolutely, having that stream be such a big thing for me reinforces everything else. I guess bringing it back to that point of everything to do with OSU reinforces one another, and streaming definitely did that for me.
Right. Yeah, I think that, yeah, good answer. Good answer. So let's see. Have there been any like specific players over the years that you really looked up to, either as a player, obviously, or just as a community member that have kept you really engaged or inspired to, keep doing your own thing as well?
There's a few, I guess. Yeah, for playing, obviously, generally was some of the early legends, I guess. So players like Cyclone were really infamous in like 2008 when I was first climbing the ranks because he was at the top and he had like the highest accuracy of everyone. Things like that. Wilberforce as well really influenced me, but mainly as a rival because me and him climbed up the ranks at the same time and we competed a lot. So I'd definitely be influenced by the stuff he was playing and things and the way he was doing it. So yeah, he was a big influence and still is because he's still very good now. And obviously since then, there's been a lot of really good players I've looked up to. I guess in recent times, I look up to some of the other members of the UK community, and both because of their ability, players like Bubble Man and things like that, but also again because of competition, because we play a lot of tournaments with and against each other, things like that. Carthy as well really influences me as a player recently, mainly because well, me and him were kind of maybe some of the older people active in the higher ranks of play, and he's still extremely good. So I do look up to him a lot, knowing that my boomer fingers aren't so boomer yet. Yeah, absolutely. As far as players go, that's some of the big influences. I guess by extension as well, you were talking about the stream. One of the big people that motivated me to stream and influences me even now is Happy Stick. He was the guy that really enticed me to stream more. It was a friend of mine who goes by Doomsday is Bad, and also Lapis. They were the guys that influenced me to go full time. So I credit those two with that while I'm here. But
Oh,
Happy Stick was the streamer, an active community member like that inspired me the most, because at the time when he was active, he was very, very active, and he just I respect a lot of what he did while he was active on the streaming scene,
right.
and a lot of
Yes.
what I do is based on what he does or
Yeah.
influenced by what he does.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can sort of agree with that. It's a hero to be remembered, I would say.
Absolutely, he was fantastic. As I say, he's been busy with IRL stuff, but yeah,
Yes.
he's done a lot for the OC community. Certainly a lot for me.
All right. So with that, I'd like to make time for community questions, right? So those of you listening live, there's a text thread in the Discord server named Live Chat. It's on the general channel and drop your questions there. So basically what we do is if you see someone else's question that you would also want asked, if you could react to it with a thumbs up emoji, that way we can keep track of everything. And while those questions are coming in, Doomsday, if you have any sort of key takeaways or things that you'd like to shout out in the realm of motivation in general or sticking with something, go for it.
I'd like to shout out my legs. They've supported me all my life.
Same.
Say, wow, our idols are the same. I can't believe it. Yeah, I think the main takeaway I'd give to you all, I guess, from my ramble, which hopefully you all enjoyed, is in terms of motivation for Osu, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing in Osu, it's the act of playing it, the act of playing those maps, the however it is for you that you actually enjoy it itself. It helps to have a target to go for, right? Absolutely. That's very healthy and good. And it pushes you to try and improve and better yourself. But the main thing is you need to look at whatever you're doing in Osu that you're enjoying the ride. And without that, you'll find that the basis of what's keeping you going in Osu will start to fall apart, especially as it gets harder. So make sure, however you're practicing, whatever you want to practice and improve at, make sure that you're enjoying the ride because that is the foundation of what keeps you going. And it's the reason why I've been playing so long. Aside from the community being so nice to me and being involved in so many things, I've always enjoyed the game for what it is. And that will keep you going. And if you keep going with that, you will reach your goals because you'll always enjoy it. I think that's summed everything up.
Much agreed. I think fun. Nothing beats some good genuine fun with what you're doing, right?
Exactly. I feel like some people get too lost in the I must improve, I must try hard, I must reach grandmaster rank, and I've seen a lot of people just fall apart, and not enjoy what they're doing. Just they grind so hard, think on things, thinking, "Oh, I have to do this to improve." But you just need to make sure you're enjoying it, and you will get there in your own way. That's so important.
Right. Yes. Much agreed. All right. Let's see. So the first question comes from Wild Guess, who asked, with many top mouse players switching to tablet and improving, does that ever discourage you to stick with mouse?
Nope. Yeah, that's it. No, I'll elaborate a little bit. I mean, for the longest time, I've always said that mouse is just as good as tablet. I just left it at that. But my viewpoint has mellowed out a little bit over the last few years because the evidence is there that tablet, the higher prevalence of tablet players in the higher ranks. I think that it's easier to generally learn mechanics on because of absolute positioning. But once you get past the initial stage of getting used to the muscle memory of mouse versus muscle memory of tablet, once you get past the early stages of that and you're used to it, there isn't a lot between them, in my opinion. But I feel like it's easier to learn tablet. At this point, I'm so comfortable playing mouse, it's completely second nature. I have absolutely no issues with it at all. So the main issues I have with like not being able to play certain maps isn't down to me playing mouse. It's just me, and I need to work on something.
Right.
That's pretty much why I have never wanted to switch.
Right. So, do you feel obligated, but in some sense, to stick with mouse, or is it just because it's sort of how you've, just what is fun for you and what you're used to?
Yeah, it's just what's fun and what I'm used to.
Right.
I'm sure I could sit down and learn tablet at one point, and I may still happen. That's not off the table because that might be quite fun. But most of the 99.9% of the enjoyment I have from Osu, it's not hindered by the fact that I play mouse, and I'm just so comfortable with it. So if I was going to get into tablet at any point, it'd be more for just the curiosity of playing with a tablet and trying to figure that out. But I've never felt like that. I've always wanted to just play with my comfortable setup. So that's what I do.
Right. Yes, good. I think that is a good answer.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
All right. Next question from Doxera is what keeps you interested in casting for tournaments, even if you are not really playing them anymore these days?
Well, I just enjoy casting, to be honest. I do still play quite a few tourneys, but I guess with the rise of so many good tournament players, I'm generally casting from the sidelines in some of the bigger ones. But I just really enjoy casting. That's the simple thing.
Right.
It's completely different to playing, although it helps to still be a very active player because it gives you the knowledge base to actually hopefully provide some good commentary, which I hope people enjoy. But it's a different ball game. I
Right.
enjoy it separately to playing.
Yes. I think yeah, I think anyone who's done both casting and playing would agree with that. All right. Next question from Sydney is has the community ever demotivated you at any point?
Not really, no. To be honest, no. People have treated me so well. I can't really say that. I mean, yeah, sure. Obviously, you get occasional trolling and stuff, but I have thick skin. It doesn't bother me.
All right. All
No
good.
one's ever bothered me. The community has been so nice to me. I've had no reason for them to demotivate me.
All right. Next question from Mr. Falco. What is the most banger song you've discovered over the years?
The most banger song. Oh God, mate. How am I supposed to pick one? This is going to be tricky.
Oh.
I guess I could talk about like an artist I found through Osu that I think is a banger. I mean, the obvious one mentioned Camellia. I didn't know about Camellia until Osu,
Right.
but I'm trying to think of a more interesting answer to that. Oh God.
If anything comes to mind later, right, you can always come back to this question.
Yeah, I'll come back to it.
Okay,
I'll think
okay.
about that.
So, question from Mr. Wither83 who asked, "What is your motivation behind your YouTube videos?"
That's mostly down to just my own enjoyment of just uploading stuff to YouTube. If I have a cool idea for a video or I do a cool play that I really want to upload, I'll just go and upload it for my own sake. And generally recently I've been uploading more longer form videos and it hasn't been massively active. But it's more or less just if there's something cool that I want to upload, I upload it. And if something cool I want to make, I make it. And that's pretty much it. It's all hobby, really, my YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah. I'm sensing a lot of like nothing really beats pure enjoyment and just fun out of what you're doing, and a lot of the things that you do, and I think that's actually a really healthy takeaway because like you mentioned, a lot of people I think get too caught up in the competitive nature of things that they're doing, or they lose sight of why they started in the first place, and yeah, ultimately, you want to make sure you're still having fun with what you're doing. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, I guess because I'm far more active on Twitch than I am on my YouTube. Because generally, the Twitch is where I get a lot, most of my support from as well. And that's generally what keeps me going. So more or less, my YouTube has become more of a hobby channel because that's yeah, pretty much it really.
right.
I totally agree with you. That's that point. I think I'm glad I'm getting that across because that's pretty
Yes.
accurate.
Yes. All right. So, another question from Mr. Falco is what would you tell someone who is basically given up on improving in the hopes of getting them hooked again?
Uh, well, I think first of all, if that hints to me that at some point you were really keen on improving and you were really driven to do that, but then something happened, or just over time you just lost interest for one reason or another in whatever you're improving. It helps to look at what you enjoy doing and seeing if you can focus on that, trying to get better at that. Because if there's something you enjoy to do, or like a particular element that you enjoy to play, if you enjoy that and you can push yourself to improve at that, that's probably the best bet, really. Because if you're not enjoying something and grinding at it isn't really going to help, right?
Right.
Um, So really, I'd say, in terms of that, if you're eager to try and get hooked on something, getting hooked on improving again, look at what you enjoy and try hard on that and see if you get a good feel from that.
Right.
Because you never know, you may something might click, or you get a really good run on something, and you may be like, oh yeah, ooh, okay, what now? And then
Okay.
that's how it goes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in a similar vein, I think like finding a really cool song, like discovering a new map or something, that's usually a really big inspiration. Like finding a cool song that you just barely can't play or like is outside your skill range, and that can usually motivate you a lot to keep improving at that skill as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's what drives me a lot as well. Just look at maps that I really want to play or songs I really want to play. And if I can't do it, yeah, I'm eager to try and push myself for it. I totally agree.
Right. All right. So let's probably take one last question from Mr. Falco. Again, thank you for the good questions. And
Let's go, Falco.
yes, let's go.
Let's
So,
go.
so would you say that your music taste has changed because of Osu? And if so, was it a slight change or a complete 180?
I'd go as far as saying, yeah, my music taste has just completely transformed because of this game. Absolutely. It's actually almost become kind of an issue because when I have to like go out of my way to find new music outside of Osu these days,
Right.
unless it's other rhythm game music, which I also hang around a lot. Um, yeah, rhythm game music has absolutely transformed my music taste, and there's so many of my favorite genres and artists have come from this game, especially in the realm of things like EDM and like hardcore, which I wasn't massively into before Osu. I was generally more of a sort of like a metal guy and like a new metal sort of guy. And since I started playing Osu, Osu has pretty much become my genre of music.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people can agree, even if Osu doesn't become sort of their entire. And to be fair, there's every kind of song on Osu, I feel like. So, um, yeah, but I think anyone who's played Osu can say that it has sort of broadened their music taste, if nothing else. So,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of anime, sure, but there's just there's so much choice on Osu.
Right.
I have a lot of people that come in. It's my stream, and they're like, "Hey, I just found out about Osu. Cool game, but man, there's so much anime." And I'm like, "You just need to find everything, and
Right.
you will find what you want."
There's so much everything else too, I guess. So,
Exactly.
but yes, with that, thank you, Doomsday, for joining me on this little adventure of discussing motivation and what has kept you motivated. So, it's once again, if you have any final shout outs or thoughts that you'd like to give, then this is your time.
I think we've pretty much covered everything. It's been lovely hopping on here, having a good chat with you and everyone else in the live chat as well. Hopefully, some of my points here have resonated with some people because I completely believe in that, and finding your own way to improve at this game and making sure it's something that is valuable to you is so important. That's the main thing I want people to take away from this. But
Yes,
all in all, I
yes,
just hope people enjoyed listening to it because it was a lot of fun talking to you
yes,
about this.
yes, much agreed. Very nice having you on. I think a lot of valuable insights, and especially from someone who's been sticking around for so long. But yes, as we wrap up Motivation Week here at OS University, I'd like to give you all some very powerful words. Don't give up if you have a goal, anything like that. Don't give up and
Keep going.
keep
Do it.
going. Please
You can get
enjoy
there.
game. All right. So yes, those of you listening through a recording of this interview, if you would like to stay involved with these, definitely please join the OS University Discord server. That is where everything happens. That's where you can stay involved with these interviews. And if you'd like to support us, the best thing you can do is really just to spread the word to anyone you think might appreciate or enjoy these interviews or the things that we do here. And I think that's basically it. Thank you, everyone. And as we wrap up Motivation Week, definitely check out the other interviews if you have not seen them already. And Yeah, thank you again, Doomsday, and everyone else for listening, and we will see you guys next time.